let's say configuring alerts.
Okay.
So what are your main priorities there? Means how do you, when you're configuring alerts, what are the main preferences you need to take care of? Otherwise, your alert configuration will not be effective. To make your alerts more effective, what is your priority?
So, okay. So, like first of all, we all need to define the periodic statistics, like as well as the conditions of the metric and preparing the alert, preparing this alert. So, like in the case, like we are talking about some of the static thresholds, we need to look with respect of our application. There are baseline factors as well. So to see how the application has been performing, we set up this alerts threshold based on the baseline as well. So many like generally we will be looking for the metrics for additional configurations. Like we would be looking for our data points to alarm. So as well as the periods and the thresholds that what we define. So there are some of the basic things that which I will be looking for setting up alarm is like any those are many like yeah, these are the few things like which we see like for example like in the alerting process we will be mentioning the criticalities and all these. We will check the criticality. We will mention the how critical the issue is, and these stuff we will be mentioning in the alerts also. Alert.
Criticality, okay.
Yeah, criticality.
So your critical alerts. So alerts means what? Alerts means anything which can bring the system down, and it is critical, then the alert is configured. Otherwise, if it is not critical, there is no need for alerts. So all alerts are critical, isn't it?
Well, there are like warning alerts as well, right? Instead of the critical alerts, warning alerts as well, like which basically gives you.
So I agree with you. Yeah.
Like for example, if we need to update any of our keys or something, we will be getting the warning alerts also.
Okay. So when you are creating warning alerts and critical alerts, so what is your preference to make this alerting more effective? More effective means we don't want people to start ignoring alerts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or we don't want people to didn't receive the alert when it should be there. You see my point?
Yeah, got you. So
how do you make sure that your alerts are not too noisy?
Okay. So like, well, the most of the alerting practices like practices we are having like we need to first of all like see what are the criticality, how the application is like performing, like how we can simply just go ahead and see like what is like the alarm points of an application. Like we need to establish like clear criteria for defining like what consists of a warning alarm and like what's a critical alert. So for example, if we are talking about the web application, and if the if the if like we will talk about web application, and if the abdex source is one of the like metric we are dealing with. So if the index source goes below below 0.8%, that is the alarm for the application, because like the request will not be the request will not be served, or the request will not be fulfilled. So I will keep that as threshold for creating the critical alert. So so that threshold mapping is something like which is more critical in setting up the alerts. So like you need to make sure that you are right or setting up the right thresholds, so that teams are not guessing getting unnecessarily early alerts for any false alarms, and also the vice versa is also should be true there. So if we
Threshold. You were saying the threshold needs to be optimally, is it? It needs to be optimal so that they are not sending alerts. So how do you start with a good threshold? Means what will be your approach? Because if you start with some threshold which is happening very frequently, then alert will be too noisy, isn't it?
Yeah. So well, like availability, performance, and the decision making, and also there are the baseline the factors as well. So there are multiple ways of detecting what is right threshold, what is the right threshold for. So what is the right threshold for you? To avoid setting up the too low and creating the noise alerts. Like I follow the best practice, like setting up the thresholds based on the mostly on historical data, and setting them at the level of indicates like potentially like indicates the potential issues, but not triggered by the normal variation. So on historical data of representation, and seeing how application is performing, and you can just set up alerts based on that.
Okay, very good. Got it. So in some cases, the threshold may be different for different, let's say, windows, different time windows. For example, in the peak hours, the threshold is much higher, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or and in the morning hours or night hours, the threshold is different. So how you will deal with this situation when the thresholds are changing?
Okay. Um, like mm, in that case where the thresholds may be different for the different time windows, like we can implement a dynamic threshold approach, like basically like we majorly work on this kind, like we use the user's case itself. So basically test how the application was performing yesterday during the same duration or at same interval of time, and it will alert, or I will monitor the metric, and send out the alert based on that, right? So that's why the application performance monitoring have been featured on the basis of uh, for this all threshold and monitoring. Like for example, I will tell you, if we know that certain metric is been expected to have a higher values during the peak hours, like we can adjust the threshold accordingly for the specific time window. That will ensure the alerts are triggered only when there is a uh, significant deviation from the expected behavior of system. We will to implement this dynamic thresholding, we can use few of the algorithms and all these, so that where it will a few of the algorithms there, like where it can adapt the patterns, like a behavior of our system over the time. So this will
Nice. Okay, I think yes, you reached to the. Okay, now talk about your experience in trial. Do you know about trial?
So trial.
Trial, TOIL.
TOL. Actually, no. I was not.
Okay, so so trial means a manual task which you want to avoid. You want to automate, is it?
Yeah, we okay. So I heard about the word, but even the team started, like we are already total into automation part there. So I'm not familiar with that wording.
No problem.
Yeah.
So when you're automating some manual task, how what is your preference? Means why we Okay, for example, resetting server. If some problem happened and the server needs to be reset, that and the problem is resolved for the time being. So this could be, and somebody is manually doing this reset. So this could be a trial, or this could be a let's say repetitive task, which is done manually. Right? So how you will automate it?
Okay. So then like we can actually put in a script to do that. So like we can also just go ahead and have the Ansible playbooks like we create for our purposes. Uh, I would like so there are like multiple ways of doing that. Um, like it depends on what kind of tool like we have in the architecture to set it up. So for example, if I take an example of an like of an Ansible playbook. So I can simply write the Ansible playbook and like which will eventually have the inventory of our servers which need to be resetting up, and like we can simplify. We can simply recall that inventory and define the task for resetting that servers using the module that Ansible has to offer, and simply just to go ahead and trigger Ansible playbooks automatically by setting up that in a cron scheduler. If we are supposed to if we are supposed to running on a scheduled time every day, or if a case of if a case there is specific time duration defined, like you can set it up. You can set it up as well.
Okay, now let me ask you about dashboards. Have you created dashboards?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so how do you know that you're plotting all important metrics? Are you following any frameworks, any standard frameworks when you're plotting dashboard? Or what type of metrics you plot, and how do you know that these are the metrics you should cover?
Okay. So when we're creating dashboard, it depends on the application like which we're dealing with. So like if it's a web application, so I would like to keep a metric like a web transaction timeouts or a transaction errors, or or the transaction errors, and add that sources, or similarly, like if I'm monitoring a database, then it would we would be we would keep that metric wait timeout, or running queries, like deadlock situations, connections timed out, and thread consumption. So it depends on the service. It depends upon the it depends upon the service to the service duty, or not using any framework for that matter. But with respect to the service to an application I'm dealing with, like it will be very subject to the approach we will follow is like a same I suggested on the databases also. For example, like we I will tell you like one other thing. So when creating the dashboards, we do see, for example, if it is a databases, like the things would be different. Like if it is on the specific application availability, there's a it would be different. Like we just take that API metric and we add in Prometheus, and after that we will get a Prometheus generated metric and we will add it into the Grafana boards.
Okay, so you mentioned about APM metrics and other metrics.
No, API, not API metrics. From API, we take that endpoint and we put into the Prometheus. We will be.
When you explain to me APM, what is APM?
APM was the application. It's a totally the application performance monitoring. Where we do see
how can you classify some metrics as APM metrics?
So to classify this like a relatively any metric which is a application specific metrics in consider with any metric which is an application specific metric can be considered as a APM, application monitoring metric. So that any metric which governs how application is performing. It could be a web layer monitoring where the transaction is timed out. It could be a JVM parameters monitoring, like heat memory. So it gives a flexibility and a fair amount of ideas like how our application is performing from the root level. Like like if you're talking about the JVM parameters or
Hey,
a
can
thread.
you explain to me some APM metrics which are proposed by Google? I think four golden signals. Did you hear about them?
Yeah.
What they are?
Four golden signals is like the latency, latency, traffic errors, and saturation. So yeah, these are the four golden signals.
Okay, why we call them golden signals?
So normally it will determine uh, to determine for example, uh, in addition of this for the when where these four golden signals are very important for an application. To for example, we do use the latency, it measures the time it takes for the request or proceed, and it is
Okay.
one of the indicator.
Okay, got it. How can you define latency? What type of yeah? So when you are setting thresholds for your latency, what threshold do you use normally?
So for the
For example, will you take an average latency value and use an average value when you're setting threshold, or what?
So, like as a general rule of thumb, like a threshold of 100 milliseconds for the latency is considered as good for the most of the applications. Well, like I would use ABEX score as a ratio value of the numbers of satisfied and tolerating request to the total requests, and
So
we
this 100 millisecond is an average value, means if
no
average
no
response time
No, like
for the
however, the
service.
threshold and the latency can be vary depending on the specific use. So this would be this 100 million 100 millisecond is for the latency that we consider. Just as normally we consider for the most of the applications.
So 100 millisecond is you said default or standard, right?
Yeah, just like
And
a threshold
it
of
is an
100
average.
millisecond
Did
seconds
you
for the
hear about
latency is considered as
P95 and
good for the most
P99?
application.
Did you hear about P95 and P99
Yes,
when you are defining latency?
yes, P95 and
What?
okay. So when it comes to P95 and P9, okay, I would talk about P99. So P99 is basically means like 99% of the value or below the 99% of the value. So for when here that yeah, but being like be an item, let's think an item of 95% shows the experience of 90% for the user. However, the P99 in generally shows the experience of 99% of the users. So that's the main difference.
So why you need this when you are defining latency threshold?
Okay. Well, this is basically to define the experience of experience. So if you're looking at the place to improve the performance of your application, then it would be sense then it would be like make more sense to look and P95 responses and the values, then to look at the P99 value. So it's just to make sure how you want to improve the performance of your application, and that's what its use case is. Main use in general, like P19 percentages are useful because you can we can parameterize them to look at the different slices in the distribution, and the higher percentiles will show you a spike in the raw data. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about your experience in infrastructure as a code. Have you used infrastructure as a code?
Yeah.
What platform you use?
So I have used Terraform mostly, and as well as CloudFormation also.
So Terraform, what are the main steps when you are running Terraform scripts?
So you need to be first initialize the work, and so if you use the Terraform, we need to initialize in the Terraform, creating a Terraform plan and applying the Terraform plan, Terraform plan, and all these.
So when you're initializing, what is actually happening?
So when we initialize, once you have written the code, the next step is to initialize the Terraform. This involves in running the Terraform init, which setups the environment and downloads the necessary. It downloads all the necessary plugins and the modules.
Okay. Okay, got it. So Terraform modules, do you know what it is?
Yeah, in Terraform modules are written for our code reusability purposes. So basically, if we define a standard set of resources, which we want to deploy, which we want to deploy repeatedly, we basically create these modules out of it. So there are supporting files with these modules, which we eventually get called for parameter passing with the main files. But the main use case of having the multiple modules to have a code reusability, so that where we can use the same piece of Terraform code for creating the multiple environments.
Okay, what about TF state file?
So a TFS state file, the state file, we use a state the state file is a state management file, which basically Terraform uses to map the resources which are defined in the Terraform main.tf file, with the real world resources. So whatever is defined in the resource file, so that get mapped to the Terraform state file once that is created. So the state file can be stored locally on the Terraform user machine, or remotely also in the backend, such as in a S3 or HashiCorp console and everything there.
So why we need to save it remotely? What benefits you will gain when it is saved remotely?
So the main use case of having them saved remotely is to avoid the mishandling. That includes the nation of the state file, because if you have deleted the state file, then the entire Terraform code will go. It will go. So if we stir it remotely, we can see it would be much more helpful for the collaboration work also, in working process. When working in a team, having a stateful file stored remotely allows everyone to have access and modify the infrastructure also. This way, everyone can work on the same code base, and mostly versioning, some remote backends.
But there could be big problems if let's say 2 or 3 people, they are trying to modify the Terraform deployment, so they can let's say, steps on each one toes, right? Means, let's say somebody is trying to create some VMs and somebody else is already deleting some VMs.
We do the state file locking. Like there is a locking support for most of the backend providers. So ideally, when one of the person is modifying the Terraform environment, so that state file gets logged, and so that is called like, and that's how like we log that mechanism. So like we log that.
Locking mechanism will ensure what?
So to prevent the concurrent access to the state file by the multiple users or processes.
Okay. Now tell me about your containerization experience. Have you wrote containers? Container images, did you compile them?
Like I have written the content, like I have a few of the Docker files and created Docker images also, and launched those and launch containers out of it, like using the Docker command line utility. That's the experience I do have with the containerization. I also have experience working with the orchestration.
What type of images you create?
Okay, so the images. Oh, so you're asking like what kind of VM image I created, right? Can you elaborate that?
Docker image.
Okay,
Docker image.
Okay, so like there are multiple images like I haven't created. So there is a Docker file first, like I have written. So we are in where like we are using our base images as an Alpine image, and I am doing customization for the web layer, installing the HTTP or Apache RPM on top of it, and making the customization to it, and then eventually adding a Tomcat layer on the top of the application layer and making the changes for the certain property. So there are the different arguments that get passed in one of the argument for defining the base images. Then there is a CMD argument that there is a run argument that there is a entry point that there is a CMD again. So I created the Docker file to customize the web application layer, and then have used the Docker build image out of that, and that Docker build the Docker will happen, and it is for like tagging that image, tagging that image.
Okay.
And
tell me about container orchestration. You just mentioned it. What it is?
So okay, well, the container orchestration means like launching the multiple containers out of a predefined YAML file. So like Kubernetes is one of the container orchestration tool I use, and Docker Swarm also is one of the orchestration tool I use. Like now you can launch single container, one by one using the Docker command line, and there is orchestrated uh, and we can orchestrate the all these uh, containers in it.
So why this orchestration is needed? Don't you run these multiple containers without orchestration?
Not like that. So for we why we required it extensively is like so right now in our present world, like mostly we are going to this orchestration policy in this method because to uh, uh, like for example, uh, um like while it's how can I tell? Okay, it's like possible to run the multiple containers manually without the orchestration tools, but it becomes increasingly complex, and like it was like really difficult to manage also. So container orchestration tools like it helps us to automate and simplify the process of deploying and scaling and like managing the containers, right? So like mostly and also provide the features where it is mostly like which we can essentially for ensure it help us to make the more high availability.
What are the main components of Kubernetes which make this orchestration simple?
So the API server at the at the kube schedulers, and control managers, and there are control managers and which is a daemon that runs on the worker nodes. So like these are the main components.
Okay, now tell me about orchestration components. Okay. Okay, pods and containers. What's the main difference?
So um, well, pods can run the multiple containers. However, containers are, on the other hand, are like a smallest unit in terms of like a microservice, in terms of like a microservice deployment kind of thing.
Have you worked with Istio?
Istio? Yes.
Istio, ISTIO.
Yes, Istio.
What it is?
It's a service mesh kind of tech. It's a service mesh.
Why we need it?
So we use it Istio, like we use it as a sidecar proxy models. When a small proxy container such as the envoy is injected alongside each service instance. Like this allows Istio to control and observe the network traffic between the services without requiring any changes to the service code itself.
Okay.
So it's like it's like it's like a it's like act as a communication.
So Kubernetes cannot provide the same as Istio is providing?
So no, it's basically like works with the multiple layers. So Kubernetes platform is like a microservice based communication, like pod to pod communication. However, like Istio is basically for all the organizations, like large organization problems, so it's a technical solution to deal with issues like created by moving. So it's like Istio service mesh provides us the additional features on top of Kubernetes networking, such as like traffic management, security, and observability and policy enforcements. These like where K8 can provide the basic same load balancing and the service discovery, like Istio allows for the more advanced traffic routing and management capabilities.
Right. Okay, nice. Now tell me about your experience with Ansible. Did you use Ansible and why we need it?
Okay. So as I said you before, I work with Ansible. Ansible, we use it for the configuration management. It's a tool where we use. So we currently use it for patching related services. So it's written in YAML, so that you wrote the playbooks and Ansible in YAML. It's also have a code reusability aspects, with rules based approach, where roles have a multiple directory structure inside that, includes the meta including like where the task handlers also, and where we use it in most of the projects to automate the tasks such as the server configurations, software installations, or application deployments, and all these yeah. And we can and you can simply call the roles for the few of the one particular main file, like via having the patching different flavors of Linux service patchings. Like we have a Red Hat based systems, like and we have the Amazon Linux, and we have a Debian based flavors. So we have been created the separate roles for all of them using
Let
this.
me ask you quickly about which cloud services exactly use in which platform, cloud vendor.
So AWS is a major site.
Okay, vendor. So in AWS, what services?
So what specific services I totally have, or like
Most of the time you are working with which services?
so most of the time is with S3, RDS, CloudWatch, EKS, ECS, and SNS, SNS.
So EKS and ECS both are container orchestration platform, or what they are?
So yes, both are EKS. So yes, when come to ECS and enlarge, like both the container orchestration, and ECS and EKS are both the container
Why we
orchestration
need
platforms
different
only.
services for them?
So so the difference between them is to uh, so ECS ECS is for the small scale, but whereas when it comes to EKS, more like it's for it's for the bigger environments and all.
That's it. This is just a scaling issue. Means ECS for small
No,
applications and
like
EKS for bigger.
no. Like ECS is fully ECS is basically a EKS, like where EKS is fully managed Kubernetes as a service platform that you can enable to deploy, run, and manage services. But ECS is a Docker based container scheduling and orchestration systems that AWS team like built from the scratch. Like ECS is ideal for running containerized application that do not require the full flexibility and complexity of the Kubernetes. But ECS is also tightly integrated with other AWS services also, such as Elastic Load Balancing, IAM, and CloudWatch, and all.
Okay. Now talk about stateful and stateless. Do you know what it is?
Stateful. Okay. Okay. So I will tell you. So there are the different kinds of security algorithms. So there is security algorithm groups as well. So a stateful application is one that retains information about the previous interactions with the clients or the other systems. That means that keeps the track of the state for a particular user or a session, and will use that information to inform the subsequent interaction. That stateful applications are often used for tasks such as like databases, where it is important to keep track of our user data over the time. In contrast, like stateless application does not it does not retain the information about the previous interactions with the client or any systems. Like each interaction is treated as a new request, and the application does not remember any information about the previous interaction. So like stateless applications are often used for the tasks such as serving stateful files or handling the web request, like where there is no need to keep track of user data over the time.
Okay, so stateful and stateless. Okay, so you mentioned that stateful has some data storage requirements, right?
I didn't.
Okay, so
and statefuls are the security groups, and stateless are like network ACLs.
Okay, so can you run stateful applications in Kubernetes or not?
The stateful, yes, we can run as a stateful set.
So what is the main difference then when you're running a stateful, the YAML file which you are...
Okay, well, it has to have a own persistent volume. Like it has like it has to have its own distributed data.
Okay. So, okay. So stateful. So you worked in stateful applications running on Kubernetes?
Yes.
So what
Like
exactly
that,
is
I
that
have a
as
both. Like we worked on both sides. Actually.
so what is that
Okay.
that
Like
is
if you
the
want to
test allocation, right?
give an
What do you call
example,
it?
what?
No, no, what we call it in Kubernetes, there is a specific object which we need to create to save or to store our data, isn't it? In our containers, in our so what is that? What is the name of that object? In a
Persistent
stateful
volume.
volume, yeah.
A persistent volume. Yeah.
So persistent volume, okay.
Yeah.
So so what is persistence volume claim? Yeah.
So the persistent volume claim is used to request a specific amount of storage and access mode from a like like it requests the storage by the user. Like it used to abstract the underlying storage infrastructure. Like we PVCs can be used to like different type of the storage. Like well, like persistent volume claim. Uh, for the storage of the user, like it's similar to a pod. So the pod consume no resources PVC. Like persistent volume claims is consumed persistent volume resources only. Like however, persistent volume is an node resources, and PVC is consumed PVC is consumed from the PV resources, persistent volume resource requests.
Okay. Okay, good. So this is all. So now, have you worked in CI/CD?
Yes.
Which platform you use?
I work with Jenkins and Azure DevOps.
Okay, so what's basic need of CI/CD? Do you think?
So like the basic need of it is like have a pipeline source code repository tool, like and adding the plugins, like if in case like we are talking about the Jenkins, like you could like to integrate the different technologies, so that's basic need of it. And mostly like
So without pipelines, what issues you will face in your environment?
so if we don't have like without pipelines, you would not have any integration. So you will have to write down a default jobs, because pipelines helps you to create a multi-stages. So there are multiple different tasks, like you can call in a single piece of code. Like if you are writing a separate jobs and you don't have a pipeline, you will need to actually write them manually and call them manually one by one as a part of the single job where in there. But there will be like a higher risk of failures of those tasks. And uh, uh, long there will be a like failure of the tasks, and
Have you involved in writing Jenkins files?
yeah, I have wrote the Jenkins files. Like I have written the
What type of
Jenkins
a
file
script
for
it is? What
keeping
is
the
script it is? When you're writing a Jenkins files, it is a script, isn't it? What script it is?
I have been wrote the few of the mostly in the YAML YAML only.
Only YAML.
Yeah, I wrote in YAML.
So YAML, can a YAML be used as Jenkins files or not?
No, like we use mostly in Jenkins. Okay, sorry, I got confused. So sorry. So not really. So Jenkins is an like XML file. Like we wrote the Groovy scripts, Groovy script there in Jenkins.
So you write Jenkins file using Ruby script.
Yes.
You know the syntax.
Yes. No,
So
that's
normally what phases you include in a pipeline when you write it?
No, like I was referring about the Jenkins pipeline that is written in Groovy. You're talking about Jenkins pipeline or Jenkins file.
Okay, now talk about Jenkins pipeline. When you create a Jenkins pipeline using a Jenkins file script, so normally what phases you include?
Okay. Well, Jenkins file is used like and put in the source code. Our source code controls for the specific use, like use case of integrations between the CI/CD layer and the source control. However, Jenkins pipelines get created are of the different types, like different types, decreating or script. So, like if uh, I returned the declarative kind of pipeline, which is written in Groovy, and then there are the multiple stages. So some of the stages being used. In some of the stages, the source code repository checks out, and that is the first stage, which is possible for checking out of the code, and there is a build, and there's a build stage. So in a case you are using the Java based framework for this application, you would like to use the few like Maven or a Gradle, like which will be eventually be calling uh, your integration test case units in the unit test cases, and also like you can integrate Sonar Cube also, which is a third party tool for the code quality and the code coverage and the quality gates integrations. Then like you have to build or publish the artifact stage, that was basically constitute for the build the pipeline. Similarly, there will be a delivery pipeline. For the delivery pipelines, you have a for the delivery pipelines, like you have a multiple task defined, like you can call all in a script as well.
Okay, now talk about different types of deployments. So there are simple deployments, isn't it, in which you have to test thoroughly before you deploy, isn't it? Now, sometimes you want to test directly in production. How can you do it?
So you're talking about like directly testing in production environment. Okay,
Yes.
so like there are multiple ways of doing that. Like you can do the continuous deployment or the continuous delivery. So ideally, like we can use the continuous delivery, like which involves us in the manual step to deploy stages on it, production and run. But if you want to do it, like you can use a continuous deployment as well, like which basically means like as soon as your build pipelines get successful, your delivery pipeline will be triggered into the your delivery pipeline will be triggered, and the code will be directly deployed onto your environment.
How can CD allow you to test in production if you are testing after your deployment? So let's say there are major bugs, isn't it? So how you save your customers? How you save your client? You are testing in production, and it's a big risk that maybe all the clients they face the issue, which is in the code, isn't it? So
Yes.
is it the right approach to test in production?
So testing production is always not a right approach, like as I believe, like
But there are some deployment types which allow you to do this in a safe manner.
um yeah, like it's a blueprint deployment, like it's a
What is blueprint?
so like when it comes to the blueprint deployment, so in this approach, like two identical production environments are set up. One active, the active one is green, like one active, and other side is inactive one is the inactive one is the blue. So any updates or changes were made to the inactive environment and thoroughly tested before switching the traffic to the updated environment. Like your entire piece of code will be deployed. For example, like in blue and blue deployment, there are like two separate environments. Like if that created a
Yeah, that's one approach. So in case if some bugs are there and you found it, so you quickly switch back to the previous environment, isn't it? Which is stable, isn't it?
yeah,
But
and
this is quite expensive. It is quite expensive, isn't it? Do you think, is it always possible to have 2 copies of your production?
So like
imagine
at that point of time,
a lot of computation resources you need. So it's very expensive, isn't it?
We can use canary deployments as well.
What is canary deployment?
So canary deployments is in this approach, a small subset of users or traffic is directed to the updated environment, while the rest of the traffic goes to the stable environment. This allows for the testing in a live environment without impacting our users there.
Correct. So have you involved in canary deployments?
Yes.
Okay, give me an example where you did that.
Okay. Let me explain you. Well, for using this canary deployment, we basically set up a straightforward approach. So you can simply pull the Docker image, create a Kubernetes deployment, create a service, create a first version of the cluster, and then you can simply create the canary deployment. Now, in order to create canary deployment, so the command for that will be you can need to first create a canary deployment file. So for example, if you are using the Nginx standard deployment YAML as a main YAML file, so you can create the API manifest file, and you can define the container's volume, mounts and volume inside, and we can just simply just label the new version. And it has two lead and HTML index or .NET .html index file, which basically contains the new version, and eventually you will hit you simply hit the Kubernetes apply command to deploy the newer configurations. That has to be passed in the Nginx.
So how do you manage that? I'm trying to understand, how did you manage this? You have few pods which are running old release. You have few pods in Kubernetes, the same cluster, which are running new release, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now the traffic is coming. Some users, they are going to the old release. Some users, they are going to the new release. And you are trying to manage it, that only 5% process or requests should go to the new release. Then 95% should go to the old release. So who is doing that? How you manage that?
So, okay. In the file itself, you can define the limit. You can define the limit, right?
File means the YAML deployment file?
Yes, in YAML deployment file.
So in YAML deployment, so it can be done by Kubernetes only, or you need some additional things to do it?
Istio.
Correct. So Istio can help you manage that, isn't it?
Yes.
So this is a part of traffic management.
Yeah. Load balancing or any load balancers.
Correct. So you use such a YAML, you configure it for Istio, which is managing it?
No.
Have you worked? Yeah.
Now we are using Ingress, we are not using the Istio, but I just told you we can use that also.
Right now you are using Ingress.
Yeah.
What is Ingress?
So Ingress is basically a controller which eventually act as a load balancer for our services. So if you want to expose your applications, you can either create a load balancer service, but the load balancer service will eventually launch as a classic load balancer. But for our application request, it will be a web application servicing. It will be a web request servicing our HTTP and HTTPS for what you could require Ingress load balancer for it. So you can also achieve different use cases for the context path-based routing, and also requirements using this ingress. Like in very simple terms, like our ingress acts as a layer between the external traffic and our external traffic and the internal services in our Kubernetes clusters.
So what basic benefits you will get with an ingress?
Like the benefit of it is like it allows you to expose the multiple service like routing and SSL terminations and host and path-based routings, um, scalability, and mostly like centralized configurations. These are the benefits of ingress. What?
Okay, centralized configuration, you said.
Yeah,
okay.
It provides a central configuration, like points from the managing the external access to the service in a cluster, like simplifying the management of our network policies and reducing the complexity in management of multiple load balancers.
Okay, so can I use ingress to create, let's say, the same to make the, what should I say? Let's say 2 different URLs using the same host, isn't it? Using the same domain. Can I use 2 different URLs to hit 2 different applications? Okay, let's leave it.
So you want to use
most of my questions: CI/CD services, containerization, infrastructure as a code, monitoring. So you use CloudWatch, Prometheus, and Grapevine.
Yes.
Okay. Any other platform like New Relic or?
New Relic also, like I have experience with the New Relic as well. Yeah.
Okay. And what about App Dynamics?
App Dynamics, like I have a knowledge on it too. Like I can. That's it. That's
okay.
it. And
New Relic, you have some experience. You know what New Relic workloads?
So, like New Relic workloads, I don't know about the workloads, and
that's fine. So let me hear from you, Sri. I think I took a lot of your time, so thanks for your patience. So let me hear from you any questions if you have.
For me, like I have just like few questions. Like first question is like, is this with direct EPAM? Does EPAM had any for the multiple applications of EPAM, or like are we acting as a or this hiring is for the other client that where EPAM is supporting?
Yeah, sorry. So EPAM is a big environment, and so they have a lot of internal applications where EPAMers are helping, let's say, to maintain those. So we have a lot of internal projects, and also we have external client projects where we are helping clients to digitize their workflows with it. So yeah, both flavors you can find here.
Oh, okay. So I guess like you guys, you are working with EPAM since past 4 years, right? So what would be like, what kind of tool and architecture like we do mostly experience with EPAM projects internally with EPAM applications? Are they mostly or .NET based or Java based applications, or like how all the infrastructure setup and everything is EPAM?
Okay, so EPAM has a lot of recent platforms deployed for the internal applications. So I've worked many of these. So it has all the major cloud vendors, Azure and AWS, and Google. Google is our major partner, and also we have a lot of platforms from HashiCorp like Vault and others. All these platforms we are using. A lot of security tools we have, like the SIEM platform from IBM and other vendors. So most of the major players we are working with.
Got you. Got you. Got you. So like so that means like we are using a multi-cloud environment, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Got it. So like
Okay, Sri. So
yeah,
nice meeting you.
yeah,
Um, so, so I think we had a very productive session today. Thanks a lot for answering my questions, and I really I'm happy and glad to see you answering some questions very focused and uh, in a very smart manner. Thanks for that. And our HR will be in touch with you soon.
yeah.
So please
Sure,
be in touch, and somebody will be in contact with you very soon. Okay.
sure, Irfan. And thanks for
Thank you
your
so much.
time. Thanks for your time, and I'm really sorry if I spoke, I answered quickly. Like that's how
No, 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 no.
I
You
talk.
tried your best. I think you tried your best to convey
Yeah,
your concepts to me,
yeah.
and I think I got most of these. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye.